Dragon Quest Builders is now available on Steam in 2024. Now that's certainly a string of sentences I wasn't expecting to say today. I mean, sure, Square Enix has shadow dropped Dragon Quest Treasures on Steam last year, but the first Dragon Quest Builders? Especially considering we've had the sequel available for a while now? Now, that's unexpected. Still, I never played this original release, so I was definitely curious of how the first game holds up on PC and how it compares to its sequel. First things first, just what is the story of Dragon Quest Builders all about? To put it simply, you are the legendary builder with the power of creation, and you're capable of crafting new things by just obtaining new items. Your task is to restore the world of Alefgard after a certain hero accepted the proposal of the Dragon Queen and caused the world to plunge into darkness, thus making its population lose their creativity and force them to fend for themselves. After you've arrived at your first base, the goddess will task you with finding new villagers to help with the rebuilding. Once you rescue them, they'll immediately have a series of requests for you, though they can be categorized into just build this item or room for me. Or, I think I saw someone in this location, maybe go rescue them. These asks have no time limit to any of them, and honestly, the only worthwhile reward is maybe progressing the story, because they're all pretty straightforward. Now the story itself is divided into several chapters, which to me all felt somewhat repetitive at first, but it does have the classic Dragon Quest charm to it. Who did this? Why did this happen? These may sound like cliché questions, but Dragon Quest Builders' story, while definitely not one of the main points that made me like it, was definitely unexpected given other similar titles of this genre. Still, perhaps one of the biggest annoyances I had is that once you go to the next chapter, the game essentially resets your character, taking away all of your recipes and forcing you to essentially start over from the beginning. These chapters are also not interconnected, but that brings me to my point. This game isn't something you should buy for its story alone. I'll argue that the main appeal of Dragon Quest Builders is quite obviously to build, and after completing the first chapter I was introduced to free mode. If you've ever heard of creative mode in Minecraft, it's kinda similar to that, in the sense that you're generated a random world layout and you're free to roam around and build to your heart's content, with all the recipes you've learned from story mode and their locations present. Still, it does feel a bit lonely because there's no multiplayer support at all, not even split screen co-op, and I'd argue that these voxel type games are infinitely more fun with friends. The day and night cycle implies that the enemies get more dangerous at night, but I honestly didn't have any difficulty defeating them. And in fact, the combat system is not complicated at all to grasp, with one of the big pluses being the weapons. Unlike other games, they don't have a durability meter, so you're never bogged down from progression. For the more hardcore players, this might be a negative, seeing as Dragon Quest Builders has no difficulty toggle of any sort. There's also no visible penalty for staying awake during a full 24-hour cycle, with the only thing that might stop you is your character's hunger. And even then, just grab a couple mushrooms, place down a cooking flame, and presto, you got yourself a dish that will likely last you a good while. Even the inventory becomes a non-issue after you've built your first colossal chest, which with the tap of a button, you have access to a quite absurd amount of inventory space right at your fingertips, and making the additional chest to store your items is incredibly easy as well. The controls in the PC version, however, do leave quite a bit to be desired. By default, the game has a pretty strange button layout that was present in the original release. This is still very confusing today. Thankfully though, you can customize the control scheme in the options menu, but it does take some time to get each button assigned. One of the main selling points is that the Steam version already comes preloaded with all the console version's DLC. Now naturally a huge majority of them are merely cosmetic and don't really add much to the experience, though it is reassuring that you won't have to buy any of them separately. Furthermore, even with all the DLC, the game uses less than a gigabyte of storage on the computer. The PC release of Dragon Quest Builders is certainly the definitive way to play the game, even if it's a tad late to the party. Despite its limitations, it's easy to just lose hours of your time just building your base and fostering a community with the townspeople, not to mention just gathering and building whatever your heart desires in free mode. Still, the out-of-the-box control mapping, or perhaps the many quality-of-life things that the sequel does, make me wary of whether to recommend it as a purchase at this full price. Still, Noisy Pixel is giving Dragon Quest Builders on PC an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon, help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy pixel.